Evening, everybody. Welcome to this Ask Me Anything on building a training business. It's great to have you all here. Just to say, we are recording this evening, and we're recording so that anybody who can't make this session can watch it within the event space within the community. Would you mind, if you're not talking, just popping yourself on mute, and that would just help us to avoid any background noise? That would be great. And for any of you that haven't been to one of our Ask Me Anythings before, it really is an open shop for questions, for you to ask us questions around the specific topic. So we have got the wonderful Noel here with us today. So just give everybody a wave, Noel.
Hi, everyone.
And Noel and myself are going to be answering your questions. There has been quite a few questions already submitted, but what I want to make sure is that actually we get to come to you guys and answer your specific questions because you're here in the room as well. So my plan is to kind of go to a question that's been sent in, which one of you might have asked anyway. And then to go to you guys as the audience to be able to feed in to this Ask Me Anything. So without further ado, Noel, would you mind just kind of introducing yourself a little bit, only in a couple of minutes, because we want to make as much use of the time as possible. But before you do, I just want to tell people that I invited Noel along to give the perspective, really, of a brand new business owner. And he'll tell you a little bit about his story and what his business is.
Okay, good evening, everybody. And thank you, Tammy. And yeah, so my name is Noel Moran, for those of you who don't know me. And I suppose my business come about really due to me having a very personalized lived experience within the criminal justice system. Unfortunately, in 2006, I got sentenced to a life sentence with a minimum term for 15 years and found myself setting off on an extremely long sabbatical, shall we say, a young 21-year-old. And a couple of years within that journey, I found a practice of mindfulness and yoga, which really helped to shape me and kind of helped me find a balance throughout going through such a difficult time. It helped me find myself and be able to connect with myself and others a lot better. And as the years went by, I was doing a lot of different mentoring roles with men within the estate who were the most vulnerable and most prolific self-harmers. And I just wanted to share some of my meditations with them just to see whether it'd make a difference in any kind of way. And after a couple of weeks, they were coming back to me, telling me that they hadn't been self-harming, they haven't had any thoughts of self-harm. And at that point was my kind of turning point where I knew I wanted to be a practitioner. I was far from a practitioner at that point, but I thought this is something that I really want to hone in and develop on. So I managed to contact a yoga school and managed to gain a qualification within yoga and mindfulness. It took me about 6 months to kind of bang out. And then I went on to deliver more classes within prison. So within prison, I delivered over 4,000 hours of teaching between mindfulness and yoga to staff and residents, and alongst multiple ever training as well. And whilst this was going on, I come up with the idea that I wanted to come back to prisons. I wanted to get involved within the criminal justice system when I got out, because I think having my lived experience and putting that together with my experience about mindfulness and yoga and understanding people with complex needs, I wanted to really kind of make a difference with that. So that's when I come up with the idea of Noel Yoga and wrote my own 10-week mindfulness-based yoga course to start off with a vision that one day I was going to come back and deliver it. So when I moved on to open conditions, when I was eligible to walk out in the community, I got a job as the business manager for an international growth training company that works specifically within prisons. And I carried on managing that company whilst I was inside and until I got out. And then I come up with the kind of brave idea of actually, I want to add my wellness and training element now onto the brand, onto the company, and I want to venture out on my own and do that. And people often say to me, "Are you crazy? Why do you go back into prisons? Why do you do what you do?" And I suppose there probably is an element of craziness there, I suppose, but I think the real kind of key reason why I do that is 6 weeks after getting out, I went back into a prison and I spoke with a couple of young men who were just got found guilty for a serious charge, and they were looking at between 25 and 30 years the following week. And I only had a 10-minute conversation with these guys, and one of them come up to me afterwards and he put out his hand to give me a touch, and he says one word. I said, "What's that?" He says, "Hope." He said, "That's what you've given me today." So I just walked out of that prison with the biggest grin on my face. I didn't realize it was a prison anymore. But I just thought, if I can give someone hope by just having a 10-minute conversation with them, what can I do if I really kind of mentor these guys? What can I do if I give them support? What can I do if I help frontline professionals have a real kind of key understanding of the difficulties and what people go through and the circumstances around that? So that's a very condensed down version of my kind of story. And so as Tammy said, the business is new, and so it's Noel Yoga Wellness and Training. And so I specifically focus around the wellness element of my training, and I bring a completely different kind of unique, holistic type approach to that now, but I'm sure we will go in further around the business as we go on within our discussion. Thank you.
That's great, Noel. Loving the fact that you talk about PRS and don't talk about meeting Tay 18 months ago, or
that's yet to come.
So Noel, your business is now so you've stepped into your business full time now, haven't you?
Yeah.
So you've stepped out of, and I think that's kind of, I think starting off with why you've done it, and the I guess your values and your mission is what really kind of aligns with Tay, and that's why we invited you to do the T4I course about 18 months ago. Because your values are absolutely there. But from a business owner's perspective, your business is very new, isn't it? Just tell people kind of the size of your business and kind of what you're focusing on now.
Yeah, so yeah, as I said, it is relatively new, and I think what really helps me in terms of just kind of finding more of the training element side of things was kind of doing the T4I, but not just doing the T4I. I think coming on as a TAFE facilitator and just having a look at kind of just the whole kind of value and values-led perspective of the organization, and everything comes from that trauma-informed approach, and I've always been trauma-informed myself, and I think just having more of a professional understanding of it with the training through TAFE has really helped me to kind of develop kind of within my own business. It's relatively small, so I've currently got 2 staff working with me at the moment, and I've got 2 more in training. So there's 2 guys with lived experience as well. I'm hoping to kind of get them on board with it. And my kind of future mission is with it, I want to do as much as I can within criminal justice and within prisons, because there is going to come a time personally that I'm going to step away from prison work myself, because I have to serve them so long. But I think if I can create a legacy, if I can create people like myself to be able to go back and deliver, that would be the ideal world. I'm finding quite a lot of passion within the charity sector at the moment as well. Initially, I did want to do some more kind of corporate stuff, but actually, when you go to an organization, and you guys might have experienced it yourselves, when you're listening to the values of an organization, you listen to the values of the people in the room. When you're talking with people within the charity sector, and they just talk about how they got into the jobs, why they do what they do, and just like from the whole mental health perspective and the difference that they're making, it just really puts me within my element, within training, and within my company. I want to develop that more and more.
Brilliant. Thank you, Noel. So Noel's business, Noel's great, just like all of you guys here, at talking about his values and his mission. Sorry, I will remove my dog in a second. Noel, just start off for me whilst I go and move Poppy, and just tell people a little bit about the best way that you've built your network.
So I suppose my network I've been building since I was in prison, from day one, really, from when I kind of knew what it is that I wanted to do. I showed people what I could do. So between kind of delivering 4,000 hours of teaching within prison, by doing various different mentoring roles, I built some really good relationships with governors within prisons and senior management. And what I have noticed now, even like people within education departments and different departments within prisons, they've all followed me on social media since I've been out. And they're all kind of connected me and following my work. And recently, quite a few have reached out to me and looking for me to do some work with them within the training element. So I think build relationships is probably the most positive thing, but not just building them, again, just showing them what it is that you can do. Because there's one thing I was saying, yes, I'm great and I can do this, but how about putting it to practice and showing people you're great? If you can't show them directly, then it's probably looking about how you can capture that in terms of impact, whether that's through kind of research methods or your evaluations.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of rewind us a little bit so that we can go on to kind of the specific, I guess, business elements. Noel, you've touched on kind of your values, your mission, but also one of the things that you've done, which will align with most of the people here, is actually you've built years worth of experience. And so actually you're ready now to step into that. So there are a lot of businesses that you can kind of step into overnight. They might not be successful, they might be successful, depends if you're going to be a YouTuber or a TikToker or whatever it is. But actually all of us from a training perspective are coming from something that we've got the lived personal professional experience in. So I'm going to assume for this Ask Me Anything that actually you guys are coming with that solid level of experience. So we're not going to kind of cover that really. I'm going to take that a little bit as read. And
Can I just add to that, Tammy? Just in terms of when you know you're ready as well, sometimes you might not actually be quite ready when you think you're ready. And I remember taking this advice from a person just over a year ago, Tammy herself, and I was speaking to her about the business, and she was like, "You're not ready yet." And she was kind of telling me that you're a year off, and she'd probably be smug about it now. Yeah, I was right. But exactly that kind of year down the line, I got to the point that I was ready, but that was because I did listen to Tammy, and she's a lot more experienced within the field than myself. So sometimes it does help to just, because we are emotionally invested in stuff and we are passionate about stuff, and we want to jump, we want to fly. But if somebody out there that has your best interest at heart is telling you something, then it does help just to slow your pace down a little bit as well.
So just to give a bit of a backstory, I guess, is that for the last kind of year and a bit since he graduated from T3I, I've been business mentoring Noel. And what Noel's talking about here is the fact that he had all of the experience and all of the passion, but actually his networks weren't quite ready for him to take that step, particularly because what he wanted to do was take a step out of full-time PAYE employment into his own business. And what I didn't want to do at that point is give him false hope, really, that you can just kind of quit one job and magically make another business overnight. So actually we held back until Noel had a few contracts in the bag to start in the January. So that's kind of one of the core parts. And somebody sent in the question and said, you know, did you talk to anybody about what you were doing and did you get any advice? Well, as most of you know, for the first 3 years of Tay, I worked full-time and Faye worked full-time, and I didn't step into Tay as a business owner properly, although it was registered as a company. I didn't step into Tay full-time until we solidly had built up some credibility and there was some security there. So I don't want people to think that it's, in fact, I know that you won't think that it's easy, but what I'll say is it's really possible, but it's about that layering, and that layering is about the credibility, that layering is about consistency, that layering is about networks and relationships. And really importantly, and one of the questions that is kind of asked within this is about actually, do you know, when you're taking that step, how do you know what your USP is? And we've got lots of separate questions about marketing, and so that's something that for me has been really fundamental within growing Tay. Certainly I used to think, I used to want, and this was just before I wrote the book, because of what we do, I feel can impact everybody positively. I wanted to tell the whole world about it. But now what I recognized through going through a business program myself, having my own business mentor, is that actually being really specific in what you're doing and who you're trying to sell it to makes quite a significant difference. And Noel, I know you've got a bit of an example about that, haven't you, about a violinist?
Yeah, I'll share it. Some of you may have seen it. It's an experiment a violinist done. So a violinist played for 45 minutes in a New York subway. A handful of people stopped, a couple clapped, and the violinist raised about $30 in tips. No one knew this, but this violinist was Joshua Bell, one of the best musicians in the world. In that
Best
subway,
magicians or best violinists?
that's what it says here, musicians.
Oh, musicians. I thought you
Yeah.
said magicians. Sorry.
It's the accent. It's the accent. In the world, in that subway, Joshua played one of the most intimate pieces ever written, with a violin worth over $3.5 million. 2 days before he played in the subway, Joshua Bell sold out at Boston Theatre with seats averaging about $100 each. The experiment proved that the extraordinary in an ordinary environment does not shine, and so often overlooked and undervalued. There are brilliant, talented people everywhere who aren't receiving the recognition and reward they deserve, but once they've armed themselves with value and confidence and remove themselves from the environment that isn't serving them, they thrive and grow. Which probably, from the last environment I was working in and the environment I'm working in now, I definitely can kind of comprehend that. And as part of my resignation, I actually attached part of this quote to the resignation as well, that I just wasn't thriving in the environment and I needed to go and fly somewhere else.
Is that are you talking about prison now? Or are you talking about your last organization, like
The last organization?
Right, okay, fantastic. No, will you talk a little bit about the contracts that you have now and just how you got those contracts? And you don't have to give any detail, but just kind of to give an idea of how you got contracts that have enabled you to kind of step into your own business full time.
So I've currently got 4 pretty big contracts at the moment. So I'll talk about the prisons ones first. So there's two prisons ones, and they're with the mindfulness and yoga program that I wrote when I was in prison. And so last year I delivered the first training course of this course within prison. It was exactly a year after being out. And I built a really good relationship with the governor of that prison. And then she introduced me, because she see the work that we was doing, she introduced me to 2 other governors, which since then we've got 2 further contracts. So when it comes to the kind of point of leaving the company that I was in, I already had 2 contracts put in place. And then whilst that then as well is I delivered for a big training organization, criminal justice organization last year with TAY. And it was a pretty comprehensive criminal justice training, and I delivered that for 3 months to pretty much all of their kind of staff within that region. And
under the TAY umbrella, that was, wasn't it? That was part of the training.
Yeah, so that was with TAY. And what really helps me with there was to get me noticed in terms of the people within the organization, and every single training session was 100% excellence, and I built a rapport with them and I stayed in touch. And when I kind of moved on and I was speaking with the director of that company kind of later on in the year, they offered me then a contract with them doing wellbeing training to pretty much all of their staff and to work with their service users as well. But then I think as well, kind of reaching out to Tammy and speaking with Tammy in terms of the work that I was doing, and she's seen the work that I've been doing throughout the year then as well, that she offered me a wellness and training opportunity as well with another organization that she works with, which I've been booked out for training there till March next year. So it's keeping me pretty busy at the moment. So it's only a new company, but it's getting off to a really good start.
Yeah, so I think if I'm right, what you're saying there again is it is about those relationships. Just to be clear, the first one that Noel's talking about, the organisation did come to me, and so did Noel, about whether this is a conflict of interest, and I was like, absolutely not, let him have this, you know. So just to say that he didn't take the training that he did for us and then go run and sell it somewhere else. He's delivering something completely different for them, so there is no conflict of interest there. And with the other contract, again, he's exceptional at what he does, so why do we want to put that under the Tay umbrella when actually we knew that he was looking at setting up his own business? We don't need to be delivering even more subjects when there's other people out there who absolutely can. And that's going to be part of our model going forward as well, is going to be, and that's why we're starting to do some of this business talk now, is because actually as we grow, we don't have any designs in actually making Tay much bigger than it is now, but what we do have designs on is getting more and more work and being able to pass it out to other TFRI qualified people. And that was, for me, that was why I could say to the first organisation, and this is kind of saying, going back to Lindsay, what you've put in the chat there, I was really clear that I could, with both of those last two organisations, I could quite openly say to them, I know that not only does Noel have the passion, the values, the commitment, you know, all of that experience that only he has, all of that magic, I also know that he knows how to put together a bloody good training course and how to deliver it, because he's just been through the TFRI qualification. And for organisations that have been having TFRI trained trainers for numerous years now, that was really reassuring for them, because they then knew kind of what the quality standard was from that perspective as well. So I'm just going to pause for a moment and come to you guys for any specific questions, and then I'll go talk about the marketing and the USP, which we've been sent through as well. So I can't see everybody, so just unmute if you have a specific question.
For Tammy. Don't be shy.
Okay, let's carry on with some of the questions that have been sent through them. We've been sent through, so how did you realise what your USP was? And how did you use that to market your business? So I think one of the things that I want to clarify here is your USP isn't just what you're experienced in. Okay, so quite often people worry that nobody wants to buy what they're selling because they're only thinking about it from the perspective of kind of the product, so to speak. You need to think wider than that with regards to actually being really, really clear on both what you're selling and what is weirdly called your customer avatar. There are a lot of people out there. So if we talk about, I don't know, we could talk about wellness sessions. So Noel, there are loads of wellness organisations out there, you know that, you know, loads of them. And we say this about Tay, there's loads of training organisations out there that do safeguarding in EDI, etc. So there's two things that kind of are really key here. One is, why and how do you do it differently? Do you know, so how do you stand out from the crowd? So there's something in that each of us need to really, really think about. How do you stand out from the crowd? And then who is the crowd, and who in that crowd do you want to purchase your services, and why? Okay, because actually you could do what I did right at the beginning and kind of put it out there for everybody, but that doesn't really work. And particularly for the person who asked the question about, I'm working full time and building a business, do you know, how do I then have the energy in the evening? If you're trying to be everything to everybody all of the time, all you're going to be is diluted, and your message isn't going to be clear. So you have to be really quite specific on what you want to do, why you want to do it, what the impact is of what you're doing in comparison to your next best competitor. So you do need to do that kind of competitor analysis. And then you need to think about, who do you want to sell it to? Do you know, do you want to sell it to the people living around the corner? Do you want to sell it to charities? Do you want to sell it to criminal justice? Do you want to sell it to corporate organizations? You need to be clear about who you want to sell it to, but that isn't quite specific enough. You really have to then drill into, and this is a hard piece of work. Yeah, Lindsay, I'll come back to you in a sec, and I've seen your hand as well, Becky. You really do have to drive a piece of work, or undertake a piece of work where you get really, really specific. So Becky, thinking about your business for a moment, okay, and thinking about the fact that you're in the mental health space and young person, and you're engaging, and you're values led, and you can tailor things, and you know, you've got all of that wrapped around you. But there's quite a lot of people in the young person and the mental health space at the moment. So my homework for you would be, think about the person who you've already delivered to, or the organization that you've already delivered to, and think about the person who booked you. Okay, and sit down with a pen and paper and literally write out, you know, their name was Sally. They were roughly 40 to 50 years old. They had their own kids, or they'd worked in the system for 20 years and they were a bit jaded by it. They were, you know, write out their key components. And this is a session that we can look at doing next, USP and customer avatar, if that would be useful. Because once you funnel it down, what you end up doing is then writing your marketing as if you're speaking to your perfect customer, and then you will find your voice. So if you're Becky, if you're speaking to this Sally, and you know that she's got all of this experience in education, but she's a bit jaded and she's trying to do everything, and you know what her life's like because you've been in that world, when you're speaking to her, you're speaking to her as if you're going to solve her problems. You know, don't worry about it, Sally. I can sort that course out because I've got that experience. I'll tailor it in this way. What about if I deliver it like this? What about if I do it like this? Da, 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 da. That's what you then put in your marketing, okay? As if you're talking to Sally. Now, it sounds really silly because you think, like, naturally, you honestly think, but then I'm cutting off everybody else. I can promise you that that's exactly what I think, and the opposite happens. Okay, you end up drawing more people in because you become your authentic self, and you have confidence in what you're saying because you know that you've already blown Sally away many a times. And that's what Noel did with his criminal justice element of it. You know, really, really focused in to know that he was speaking to the governors of the prison, but not any old governor. He was speaking to the up and coming governors, the one with a bit of a mark to make, the ones who are looking for creative solutions, the ones that believe in rehabilitation. You know, all of that type of stuff is his specific kind of customer avatar around that. I'll pause there for a second. I'm going to come to Becky because you had your hand up first, Becky, and then we'll come over to Lindsay.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's super helpful, and I think I've been hopefully I've just created a face.
You're muted, Becky.
Hello, I don't know why that keeps muting and unmuting. Anyway, yes, thank you for that. I am doing lots of work in that space, so that's really helpful. It's essentially me 10 years ago when I was a teacher and needed the support that I'm now trying to create for other people. But I guess my big challenge is so it's been a year. I didn't do the sensible thing that you did, Noel. I didn't wait until I had lots of contracts and do it. A freelance contract finished, and I went, sod this, I'm not going back into full-time work. I'm going to try and make this happen. In fact, I phoned Tammy. I went, oh, I'm going to try and make this happen. And she's like, it's going to be fine. Don't panic. And I've managed to get through to now, so a year later, and paid the bills. But that's not to say I'm being able to do it longer term. What's your kind of advice in terms of cold calling? So Noel, you said you had some people that you had links with in prisons. If you were going to go out there now and try and attract someone, a company from scratch, or a prison from scratch, or Tammy, a new organization, what's your advice? Where do you start?
I think what I found best is getting yourself to events. So whether that's kind of speakers events, award ceremonies, TEDx. So I did a TEDx late last year. I'm still waiting for it to be published. Hopefully it'll be out soon. But within that TEDx alone, I met a contact, and I've stayed in touch with that contact. And then throughout that, then now I might be getting work within the private sector, within the prison service, which I've been trying to get into for a long time. And I've known other organizations have spent years trying to get within the private sector, within prisons, which is really difficult. But I had a meeting with them earlier in the week, and I'm going up to visit the prison in the next couple of weeks. So it's about building them relationships. When you go to these events, don't be shy to go and speak to people and kind of put yourself out there. And I suppose with my unique selling point is I'm selling wellness training. And if I can find well-being whilst doing a life sentence, then I believe that anybody can find well-being. So it's about how you're authentic within your approach, how you're authentic within your training, because you've probably all sat on multiple different training sessions, because I know I have. None with Tay, of course. But when you have a facilitator that are very scripted and they don't even believe in what they're saying and the values don't even align, and you're just thinking, what a crock of, and then you go away from the session, like where you probably switch off, you become disengaged. Really,
No, I'm going to take you back to business. These guys know about values and they know about good training, so I'm going to take you back to business. I'm not worried about any of your actual kind of values and operations at this point for the people in the room, just kind of about that next step into business. I guess the one thing that I'll add to what Noel's saying there, just to make it really I guess really achievable, and pretend it wasn't me, because it just sounds like I'm bigging myself up, and I'm not trying to do that. But actually it was me that invited Noel to do the TEDx. It was me that invited Noel to come to the speakers event. It was, do you know, so what, and you also did a high sheriff one from your other organization, didn't you? And you also did you went you did quite a few in the prisons, didn't you, as well? But what I'm trying to say is you can't always just turn up for those. When you said get yourself at speaking events, get yourself a TEDx, I kind of saw a couple of people recoil back as if to go, but how do I get those speaking events? Again, for me, that is about networking, and that is about looking for people. Just look for somebody who's a couple of steps ahead of you, and you know, don't worry about, like, I would love to, if I knew enough about what people are looking for, I would love to introduce them to other people. But also, no, you're only a few months into this, and you're doing that constantly for the people that you're working with now as well, aren't you? So it's about those connections, and then kind of passing them to the next person and the next person. And we can get into a worrying position where we think that there's a scarcity. And when I first kind of started in business, I kind of thought, you know, oh my gosh, so I need to hold kind of all of this tight. You will have seen, and actually this is on the back of Noel's feedback to us at Tay, you might not have even noticed, but if you work for Tay, you will have got a new consultancy agreement this year. And if you look in the consultancy agreement, we've actually significantly changed the conflict of interest part, whereas previously it literally said, within the areas that you deliver for Tay, you can't deliver for anybody else within criminal justice, charity and social care, because it's conflict of interest. We've now taken that out and gone, come and have a conversation with us, because actually there's enough of this to go around. As long as it's not one of our customers we're already delivering to, just come and have a conversation with us. And that's been a real lesson for me, is kind of moving away from that scarcity and recognizing that actually the more we work together, the more it grows. And that's why I tell people, use the things that you're doing for Tay, use all of the time that you want to kind of big yourself up, give yourself some credibility, show that you're busy, because when you're busy, more people book busy. So that's a real key thing. Is, Noel, you've been really good at kind of marketing, particularly on LinkedIn, around what you're doing all of the time, haven't you?
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things that I don't like, and probably think about what you don't like yourself. When somebody's just sending you a generic email or a generic message on LinkedIn, you know that they've probably just copy and paste it and sent it to about 1,000 other people, because it's not specific to your organization or specific to the work that you're doing. So probably just doing a little bit of research on the person that you're actually sending stuff out to, so you can have more, you know, like as Tammy said, just have more of an understanding of what it is that they need, how you can help them, how you can support them. And that helps you, again, be more authentic and to be able to get your point across, and you're more likely to get a meeting in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that I'd add to that is nobody likes to miss out. So Becky, if you're working with school A, ask school A's permission to put a bit of feedback from the session, you know, and because then if you tag that school, generally, particularly if it's something to do with kind of the areas that we work in, if you put something along the line of, you know, it was my absolute pleasure to deliver for, I don't know, Oaks Academy today. They're so committed to the mental health and well-being of their children, and they're showing this by booking values-led training for their staff. Here's a comment, or here's my feedback thing, or whatever. You can bet that that they'll share it because you've said that they're really good at the looking after the well-being. You know, you're complimenting them, so they'll share it to show parents what they're doing to invest in their staff. And school B will go, well, hang on a minute, how comes they're doing that? Do you know? And I've used that method quite regularly when I have conversations with organisations. Without permission, you just have to allude to the fact that you're working with numerous in the same area, but with permission, and usually they will give it, you can say something really nice about them. They will want to share that then, and that goes out to all of their contacts. And that's another reason why I say to you guys, if you're delivering for TAE, is, you know, put something about your session, put something about the feedback that you got, tag us. We will share it, so all of our contacts will see the stuff that you're doing, but also you're getting the credibility for everybody that's looking at your social profiles. So it, you know, it kind of feeds into each other a little bit from that perspective. Lindsay, over to you. Can't hear you, Lindsay. Do you want to type your question into the chat box, Lindsay? Okay, we'll go on to another question. I'll just let Lindsay know to put it in the chat box. Has anybody else here got any other questions before I go on to another one that's been sent through? Just unmute if you have. Shall we talk about pricing? Everybody always asks about pricing, and we've got that question a few times. So what do you want to know about pricing? How do you price? Sorry, go on, Becky.
I was just going to say, I'm terrible at underpricing myself and just thinking I can't possibly charge that for a day. And then I hear what other people are charging. I think, oh my God. And I don't know how to get the balance really of going in with the right price.
Yeah. So it's a really difficult one. Okay. So there's a few things that you need to do. The first thing that you need to do is work out your minimum that will actually cover your time, what you've the effort that you've put into it, and your preparation time. So you can't just think about that day that you're there. Okay, you need to think about actually what did you put into it before that, and also your experience. But you need to work at a minimum. Do you know what is the absolute minimum you can take? That's your starting point, and you just can't, at this stage in business, you can't go below that. You will get to a point, and this is what we now do at TAE, is we charge a lot lower for some customers, because some of our customers pay a lot higher. And so we can then pick and choose, and we can balance that out. And that's how we give scholarships on the T4I course and things like that, because it's a bit of an ecosystem. Right at the beginning, you can't start with that ecosystem. Right at the beginning, you need to know actually what's the minimum to make it worth your while? What's the minimum so you can pay your mortgage? What's the minimum so you can eat? You know, all of those type of things. And then always stay 10% above the minimum. Okay, always. Always. And if you have to say no, you are all so values-led, mission-focused people. You're going to want to say yes, okay? You're going to want to say yes. However, you're going to have to start getting comfortable with saying no. Remember when I talked about the customer avatar a little while ago, and I said, you know, focus on that Sally? Well, Sally can afford your services, okay? Sally is prioritizing your services. I'm not saying don't ever do anything for free. You might get free or anything. You might make a conscious decision that you want to go and deliver for that organization at a much lower price, but you do not do that with your time until you have got enough customers that it means you're still going to, at the end of the month, have enough income. Okay, so you can't book in advance these free sessions or these cheap sessions, etc., if it's using up your time that you have to be fee earning. So you can always say, I'm really sorry, but the lowest I can go to is, and you can say, come back to me in a month's time, or come back to me in 3 weeks' time, or anything like that. The thing I would say as well, Becky, about knowing what other people are charging is I'm quite happy for people to ask us at Tay. You can talk to each other. You can also kind of go onto some websites, do a little bit of a kind of competitor analysis and see what other people are charging, and then think about from your perspective actually how it aligns. Sometimes you will charge a fair amount less than another person to get through the door, and you'll build up the credibility. So I'll give you an example. Welsh Government. Carmen, you deliver for Welsh Government for us. When we started off the contract with Welsh Government, we knew that we were going to go in at a much lower price than anybody else, but we also knew that our quality was outstanding. That has now led to 3 or 4 other contracts where we can pay a decent price, charge a decent price. So, and that's balanced it out. So because we're charging a bit more for some of them, and they're still within the Welsh Government, it balances out the ones that we were making a loss on, if that makes sense. So you can make kind of those conscious decisions, and you can make them on the big scale, like I'm just saying there, or you can make them on kind of smaller scales where you say, as long as 5 times a month I've got full paying customers, then I can afford 5 times a month to do half paying customers if I choose to. That's the most important thing. You need to move away from that guilt. And a huge turning point for me, a huge turning point in the sales element of it, was I used to feel like I was going out and selling, and that feels really icky. I don't like that at all. I now have 100% confidence in what we at Tay are delivering, what some of you guys are delivering. I have 100% confidence. So I'm not now having any conversations that feel icky. I'm having conversations about actually the impact of what we're going to deliver. And if they don't want that or can't afford that at that point, then they might become a future customer. Or if they don't want it at this point, they're not the right customer. So I would say step back from trying to persuade people. And if I think, Carmen, if I think about kind of the world that you work in, you will be able, there'll be some people that don't empathize, that don't want to spend resources in this area, that are not on, that don't have the same values as you. Don't try and persuade them at this point. You can choose to try and persuade them 3 years down the line when you're doing really well and you've got enough kind of traction coming through. you can then go, do you know what, from my mission perspective, I want to persuade these people and get them start changing their minds and things. But at the beginning, we don't have the luxury to do that, do you know? So go for the people that already are kind of on that journey of believing in what you're providing.
I mentioned something there, Tammy, actually, just with a customer who they have come back to me and said that they want our course. So it's like a half-day session, but they'd come to me and had a meeting and we're chatting through with them and everything, and they were and they wanted well, they were saying that they were hoping to get it for a certain price, which was half the price that that would really, and I'd said no, and they actually said to me, well, I suppose we could go with you and get something that's tailored for us and that's right for us in the work we're doing with asylum seekers and refugees, or we could go with you know, a cheaper kind of provider and have something more generic. And I thought it was just really interesting, because I thought, I don't have to say anything here, actually, do I? You've just you know, you're just making my case, really. But I left it with them and they went away, and then they came back to me and said that, yeah, we've decided to, you know, to come with you. So it's not a large contract or anything. It's one session for a smaller organisation. But we are, you know, still at that kind of like building things, but not marketed anything yet, actually. And that's one of the things we need to do. Everything we've got so far has been through word of mouth, or and so it's just kind of trickling at the moment, and what we need to do is to get that marketing in properly, really, and get it kind of, you know, get what we do out there properly.
The key thing with the marketing part, and you know, I didn't learn this until I was a few years in, the key thing to the marketing part is don't market, just share your impact, your impact, thank people every now and again, of course, put your course list out there or something. But that's not, do you know how people think that you just have to keep showing people what you're selling? No. Show them other people's feedback. Show them what's different about you. You talked about tailoring there, Carmen. Yeah. You know, that is, and I'll come to Noel in a sec, because he talks really kind of strongly about that. That it makes such a difference. And I would say for any of you that are T4I qualified, just lean into the methodology. It's written for you. Just say, this is methodology I use, and this is all the added impact you're going to get. If you don't want that, then feel free to go somewhere else, but this is what I bring with me. And it's really, just like you've shown, that it's really, really powerful, because you know in your heart of hearts that you're providing you're providing impact. Do you know, anybody can sell training or not sell training, but actually what you're providing is impact, and they're either ready to buy that or they're not. And I would say at this point, if you're early stages of your business, then you look for the people that are ready to buy that. And if you're talking to Sally in your social media, and you're thanking your customers, and you're collecting all of your data, Carmen, you know, you will have quote, I know you've got quotes because you've sent me quotes of the amazing feedback that you've got. That's your social media proof, and that's your future social media proof, definitely. So I'm just going to pop to Noel, because I've been talking at you for a little while, and I want to see if he wants to add anything to what I've just said, and then we'll come across and answer Lindsay's question and the price one again.
Sophie's got a hand up as well, Tammy. I was supposed to add, when I think back to the first contract that I got, was, again, I was like, okay, what do I price it? How much do I put it out for? And then I went back to the organization, and I just asked them what kind of budget are they working within. So once they told me that, then I could, okay, so how many kind of training sessions are you looking at? So just getting more of a feel. So it's not just about tailoring a session, it's kind of tailoring your call for your proposal. So then I kind of went away, and I knew the budget, I knew how many sessions was. So at least I knew them when I came back to them, I'd already put my price across. So it's either they said, okay, we can't have that many sessions, or for that price. And I said, okay, well, we can take off a couple of the sessions. So instead of negotiating the price, we can cut it down, or we can add some more delegates onto that. So you're still getting the same what you would within the budget itself, if that's any helpful.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. And another thing to do on the basis of that as well. So some people won't tell you what they can pay, but you can still do what Noel said and say, for this price, I can do this, but for this price, I can do this. And that's really powerful because they can see the difference between the quality. And actually what you then say is you put your full costs under kind of your secondary price, because you're going to spend that extra time tailoring. You're going to have a conversation with the person, with the whoever's commission it, so that you can tailor it right. You're going to connect their values for it, or whatever's different about you. You can put that in this full price. You can do all of this. The other thing that has worked really well for us at Tay is saying two things. Is saying, right, okay, absolutely. So for this price, this is what we're delivering. Fantastic. And then giving them kind of additional options that don't have prices. So we've just kind of done a domestic abuse kind of proposal. And they told us that they had 30 grand to spend. And so we put all of the stuff in for the 30 grand and then said, but we also offer all of this with domestic abuse as well. And we didn't say do you want it or anything like that. We just said, and this is the rest of the domestic abuse stuff that we do. And they've come back and said, actually, I think we can get some more money. Can we have that too? And we didn't even price it up. We didn't offer it to them. We just said, you've asked for this. So you might say, Becky, within your world, you might say kind of a workshop with young people is what they're purchasing. But then you can also say, but I also offer mental health first aid, but I also offer workshops for the parents. I also, and that can be there too. So that's one of the things that kind of has worked really well for us. The other thing that has worked really well, if any of you don't have evaluation forms, I would say get evaluation forms. Okay, that's the first thing, because that is your social media stuff. Those quotes on there is perfect for social media. But in addition to that, one of the things that we do with our customers is at the bottom of our evaluation forms, we have a list of probably about 15, not all 90, but probably about 15 of our other courses that we deliver. And we ask the delegates to tick which other courses would be good for them, which other courses would they benefit from. And then when we send the feedback back to the manager who booked it, we also say, and 95% of the people that came on the safeguarding also want managing challenging behaviour, and 82% of them want working with people with complex needs. And so it's really smacking the manager's face, really there what you can deliver. And then we also say, and if you book this within the next 7 days or whatever kind of deadline we put in it, we will deliver 5 courses for the price of 4. And they can be delivered over the next year. So if you tell us within the next week that you want 5 more courses, we'll only charge you for 4 and you can spread them out over the rest of the year. So it's kind of telling them also what they need, because you're not coming from an ordinary sales perspective. Again, you're coming from the perspective of understanding their team and what their team need, because that's the tailoring element of it. So sorry, went off on one, but that's some of the thing that kind of helps us build it up. Sophie, just to come back to your comment on pricing. So what we do at Tay is we have from, and we have the price that it's from. So do you know that minimum amount that I said, that you'll never go below? That's where we put the from in, and that's what we put on our website. And then we have further discussions with individuals to then work out kind of depending on what they need. So we do it very specifically, so they know kind of what a minimum is. So we know that they're not even going to come and talk to us if they can't afford the minimum, basically. Now that doesn't quite work in that way now that we're bigger and we can offset some of it. But it was really important right at the beginning that actually the only people that were having those conversations with us already knew what our lowest price was. So I would say, yeah, put that on your website. But not all of the different prices, because it just confuses people.
Yeah, I was going to say as well is asking about kind of how we I guess find customers. The one and only thing that has worked for me so far has been actually somebody contacted me after having come to one of the sessions that I did in the T4I community. And that was obviously a while ago now, but when she got some work that she didn't have the capacity to do all of, the thought of me came to me. And so I say, like, lean into the community, go and do those this sort of thing and the sessions, because that's, I guess, the first step of what Noel's talking about a moment ago. Get yourself out there and doing those things. Well, that's a manageable one for most of us, is go and do a session in the community, where we might not be able to go and do a TED talk, but we can do that.
Yeah, and that's open to anybody. Do you know, if you've got a session you want to put in the community, just let me know. And you know, we're always up for that. But the other thing that I'd say is the networking sessions. So many people are working together now. Do you know, so many different courses have been developed. Like, I know, Noel, you got Alan some work, and Alan has been delivering some work kind of in partnership with you. I know Becky, I think you've been kind of talking about collaborations and kind of working together. Do you know, people do look for other people, particularly when they know, like, and trust you. And that's the important thing. Do you know, if they really if you build that relationship with people, when they're looking for what you're selling, they'll come and knock on your door. And that's I guess, for the person that said, I'm working full time, how do I kind of keep this momentum going? You choose carefully. Do you know, you choose carefully. So you focus in on your specific customer, and you just talk to that person on social media. Don't talk to anybody else. The others will come. And you choose your networking sessions that you can go to, and you build collaborations and connect within the community. And lean into the fact that it's not icky to sell if you're really delivering something that is providing value. Do you know, that's really, really important, because some organizations charge far, far, far more than us. I know one domestic abuse organization that for the same course that we do charge 2.5 times what we charge. And they've got charities buying from them. Do you know, so
just to say, there was a domestic abuse organisation advertising for freelancers fairly recently, and I didn't end up going for it, but they were paying their freelancers, I think, between £300 and £500 a day. And I thought, what are you charging to do that?
They're charging 2,500. Yeah. So it's about thinking in that way. Carmen, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, two things actually. One is that, just response to that, kind of between £300 and £500 and what they're charging, is that I'm an associate trainer with Homeless Link now as well, just because somebody had referred me to them, and they pay it's £425 a day now. And but they charge, I think it's just under £900 for Homeless Link members. For non-members, it's over £1,000. So they're not charging that, you know, like £2,000 a day or anything like
That's
that.
not,
and
yeah. So Carmen, some of their sessions are £1,900.
Yeah.
So they have a scale of what they charge.
Yeah.
So I think they do. You're absolutely right. For their members and their charities, the people that need it most, do you know, the ones that can only afford to pay a certain amount, they charge 900. But I know organisations, statutory services, that pay £1,900, and corporate organisations pay 3,000 plus. So they have the model where they subsidise the charities. Which is a model that we're kind of emulating, because it is £900 for a charity. People are willing to pay that for Homeless Link quite often, but they would never be able to pay £1,900. But actually a corporate organisation would happily pay £3,000.
Yes,
So
so corporate would be,
they offset it again.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask Tammy is that it's just so I'd got a small commission with our local authority, and on one of the sessions, so it's the Safeguarding Asylum Seekers and Refugees. On one of the sessions, there was somebody there actually from Humankind, and she stayed behind afterwards and was just chatting with me. I did mention Tay as well, because she said that it would be great to try and get our training for you know, more in her team. And I mentioned the Tay connection because I know that, you know, obviously Tay does training for Humankind, and I'm just wondering if what the best way might be to just kind of like move that forward. I've connected with her on LinkedIn. And she was going to have the conversation with her manager, and I said that I'd kind of like, so and in that regard, you know, as we were talking about potential conflicts of interest and various things like that, and what's the best way forward with something like that.
Yeah, so it's quite simple really. If it's one of our customers and we deliver that course, then it needs to stay with Tay. And but if it's a course that we don't deliver, you just literally just have a conversation with us, and I will I will contact the Humankind L&D team and just say, yeah, these guys are phenomenal, they use the same methodology as us, please go please go buy from them.
So but it's our Safeguarding Asylum Seekers and Refugees, so it's not one that Tay does. So it's that specific, that specialist one.
More than happy just to kind of let Humankind know that that's absolutely brilliant with us.
Okay.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you.
Any final questions? Noel, any final thoughts or top tips?
Could I ask a quick question?
Yeah, of course.
Hi everyone, sorry I was late today. I don't know if anyone can answer this, but something that's come up for me is when I'm trying to put pricing together is, do you relate it to the size of the company? And if so, how do you relate it? Because I've recently had to do some pricing and I just went round and round and round in circles with it. And I was driving myself a bit nuts. So I just wondered if the company size, I know there's obviously like charity work, but if it's not charity work, like if anyone's got an experience of the company size, how they then price it.
Yeah. Noel, do you want to take this one? Do you want me to answer?
I suppose I just kind of price mine based upon, as you said, Tammy, your time, what you're putting into it, from calls, from tailoring to developing, and with your experience as well. So it's my experience stems back over 15 years within criminal justice. So I kind of contribute that when it comes to pricing it up. Obviously you can't, you know, if you want to price up that in a big bulk, it's going to be a massive amount, but it's just probably looking at what's fair as well, not underpricing yourself and not overpricing yourself, trying to find that kind of healthy ground somewhere in the middle.
And I would add to that, so exactly the kind of foundations that Noel said there, but I would add to that as well, kind of a little bit like I just said to Carmen, you know, lots of organisations absolutely have that tiered approach, do you know? So if you're thinking charity versus local authority versus, well, statutory services versus kind of corporate organisations, I think in that way more than I think around the size of the organisation. And that helps me kind of determine where my starting point is. The other thing is I ask people. So I literally say to people, do you know, like I would really recommend to you guys, if you're struggling with pricing at some point, pop something in the community and ask other people. And even if you just have to arrange a quick 20-minute Zoom, if people don't want to put it in the community, do that and lean in and say, because when Noel was pricing up his one, we went back and forth kind of chatting about it, didn't we, Noel? And I do that all of the time. I recently had, it was a bit crackers, a keynote that was 15 minutes. And I would have done that for free. or I would have done it for like 100 quid. I've worked in charity world, and a corporate organisation paid me £1,500 for 15 minutes. And that was because I went out and asked. And what's great about that for me is that everything goes into pay and I take a salary. So just in case you think that I was like, but that's how we're building up our scholarships and how we can charge less for charities and things like that. So I would say, Natalie, I don't necessarily go for the size of the organisation. I go for the type of the organisation. And also, before you put any prices in, have a conversation with them so you can actually find out really what they need. Because if what you're putting in is going to be accessed by 500 people, that is very different than if it's going to be accessed by 5 people. So that's when you would go, all right, okay. So with one of our local authorities, we've got an e-learning module and a face-to-face session, and they go in part and parcel with each other. We charge them an amount to develop the e-learning module, and then everybody who does the e-learning module, they pay us £12 for. I told you we're very reasonable, you know? So they pay us £12 for everybody that accesses it, and that means that it goes on forever. Well, not, it needs obviously reviewing, but the development charges were separate. So if you're putting together a coaching program for a corporate organization, think how long will it take you to put that together for the foundations, but then how many people are going to access it after that? And you can split your prices. But equally, my biggest thing is just ask people, just say, has everybody done any of this? Do you know, and what's your experience? How much did you charge? Because for the corporate one that I just got paid for, I would have never asked for that. If I wasn't working, I've got a coach. If I wasn't working with my coach who works in that area and says, I know people who do that and they get paid £10,000. So if you quote them 1,500, they're not even going to blink. And I was a bit like, I didn't even want to press send on the thing, you know. And then I had a real celebration because we ended up being able to deliver 2 training sessions for free for somebody else. So yeah, ask.
And I think what you say is really valuable there, because I think you know, there are some companies that are corporate and you're like, you can charge that, and then you have that ability to be able to do, like, I always like to donate coaching sessions to charities every single year and raise, you know, I did it for the WLA a couple of years ago as well, and I love doing all of that. But to be able to do that, you sometimes, obviously, you're charging more to the corporates, and you also don't want to undervalue yourself, as we've said earlier, because I think that's the thing. I think sometimes we're so keen to get the work, but actually, if you underprice yourself, I think sometimes that can go against you as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You do need to look at what other people charge. Like within the training sector, like we did some kind of analysis on it last year when we were trying to work out, right, how can we kind of, on the basis of the cost of living, you know, how can we pay people more? How can we charge charities less? You know, we wanted to pay people more but charge charities less. We're like, how can we do that? So we had to look right across the spectrum, which is why I can answer with quite a lot of confidence about the Homeless Link training, because actually they were one of the organisations I went and spoke to about it. And what we found is that there's people out there that are charging £200 because it's just them as an individual, and they're rocking up and they're doing it time and time again. And they are charging about £200. And I'll give you an example. We have a tender with a local authority, which some of you deliver to. And when we put in for the safeguarding tender with them, we put our prices in at £450 a session. Okay. And that doesn't give us any profit whatsoever. It barely, in fact, it put us in quite a significant deficit because they really messed us around with the development of it. But anyway, we went in at £450, and they came back and said, you've got the highest in quality, but your price per session is way less than anybody else has quoted us. It's less than half price of what anybody else has quoted us. Please, can you justify how you can deliver for that price? And then we can award you the tender. So we went away and we did that, we justified it, sent it to them, and they said, right, brilliant, you've got the tender now. So we were really happy with that, because that was part of our strategic plan with regards to kind of building up credibility within local authority. Jump forward, and Sophie, you know about this because you helped me do the tender. Jump forward a year, 18 months, they had another tender out. And so we put in a tender for that. Sophie helped me write it. The quality got 100% on the quality. In fact, no, that's a lie. Didn't it get like 98.7 or something, Sophie, on the quality of them knowing that we would absolutely deliver amazing training? We went in on the exact same price that we went in on previously. So we didn't even like increase it. We went on the exact same price, and we were double the price of the person who got the tender. So in one instance, we were half the price and had to justify it. And the next instance, we were double the price. So don't feel like you have to nail this, because nobody else has nailed it. Okay. It is about knowing what you're worth, knowing the minimum that you can do, deciding who you're willing to do that minimum for, because if it brings you joy and it builds your connections, you know, you might be willing to do that minimum. But equally, just ask some questions and do some competitor analysis. You know, ask people like Sophie. I know you've just shared, and I think Carmen, you've just shared as well, haven't you? So yeah, so Carmen's charging 400 per half day and 750 per full day, increased to 455 and 840. So we at Tay, generally we charge 350 for half day and 750 for full day. So not dissimilar, but we will go lower if they buy more, and we will go higher if there's that opportunity to go higher. So you need to think about kind of any overheads that you also have. Did you want to share yours, Sophie? I know that you were just...
Yeah, so I was just reminding myself actually. So for a half day, for charities or third sector, I charge 525, 595 for public sector, private sector 650.
Is that for half day?
For a half day, yeah.
Yeah.
What I would say as well is keep an eye out on the financial year as well, because a lot of organizations, whether it's public sector or kind of, you know, criminal justice, whatever it may be, they all have an underspend. And if you can try to capture that beforehand, it's been quite valuable for myself within the past to hone in on it just right at the edge.
Yeah, absolutely. Any final questions? So sorry, Abby, so is that the facilitator and co-facilitator rate? Sorry, Abby, just explain to me what you mean.
Yeah, hi. Because I mean, with my trainings, I've just been the only one facilitating, but of course, at times I realize now that I might need co-facilitation as well. But I haven't put that into the cost, so I might be lucky being paid, you know, that rate for just me, or is that what you charge for both?
No,
yeah,
definitely not. So yeah, we wouldn't be able to manage it. And for some people, don't get me wrong, for some people we charge 450 for half a day, and some people will charge 800 for a full day. But we've purposely kind of positioned ourselves there because we're higher than the lowest, but lower than the highest. So we're kind of that mid ground at that point. But if there's additional facilitators, we charge an additional facilitator rate. So the more delegates people have, then we will also charge for an additional facilitator. I think one of the things to kind of think about, and I would say, again, a piece of homework would really be to go away and write down your actual costs. How much do your suites cost you if you take suites with you? How much does your travel cost you? How much time do you spend? How much time do you really spend preparing for that session? And work it out from that perspective, because I know some trainers that are kind of, they've put themselves on like $650 an hour by the time you kind of really distill it down. And once you've built up some credibility, and once you've built a relationship with the customer and they can see all of the added stuff that you're bringing along, that's when you can increase your prices if you need to the next year. So it's kind of a bit of a balance in that way. And I think, because Noel, you're just renewing a contract, aren't you? And you've got, because they absolutely want you to be coming back, you've got the luxury really of kind of not manipulating it, that's the wrong word, but kind of, you know, going in and saying, well, actually I did it at a reduced cost and this is now what the real cost is.
Yeah, and well, that's what I've done, and hopefully they're going with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. So homework, guys, if any of you want to, because we won't know if you have or not, but work out your real costs. Think about who your contacts are, who your networks are, who's a couple of steps ahead of you, and you can ask them kind of how they got there or what they're doing, etc. And think about your Sally, your customer avatar, actually who is the perfect person to for you to advertise to, and focus your social media on that person, not everybody in the world. All right, thank you very much for coming along this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Tammy.
Super
Thanks,
helpful.
Noel. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Any questions, pop in the community.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.